Is a $2,500 XRP in 2025 this year realistic? Some seem to think so, and given the shocking announcements that have just come out from Robinhood, Bloomberg, the SEC, the fact that institutions TradFi have already recognized XRP, and this recognition is accelerating, maybe we are simply not bullish enough. Now, it's been a long 4 years since Robinhood's IPO, which, to put it bluntly, was unsuccessful, and it went down a lot in value when it happened. But in a shocking turn of events, Robinhood are back and surpassing all-time highs, and have just proven that crypto, that XRP, is here to stay and is going to take over. Robinhood finally enters the $90 zone as the market is beginning to recognize that crypto, that Robinhood have just opened up their business to the entire world using blockchain, and operating leverage or margins could explode in the coming decades. So as we read on, this post from Amit is Investing says that Robinhood announces new crypto products, tokenization and layer 2 blockchain, perpetual futures, and crypto staking in the United States. This of course is massive for Robinhood, but it will equally be very interesting to see what this will mean for XRP, its adoption and its price, the role XRP has played in this, and how it will capitalize and tap into these developments in the future. Because you see, in regard to perpetual futures, Robinhood already include XRP in this. So this is a direct and immediate positive to XRP. So XRP will see increased trading volume and liquidity with a broader investor base with Robinhood, and the futures on Robinhood as well. These include hedging opportunities, which is insane by the way. So you could hedge your spot XRP holdings, which will likely attract the more experienced and institutional investors, which is again a big deal. The tokenization and layer 2 blockchain, it's a bit more of an indirect, but still a positive for XRP. Robinhood CEO Vlad Tenev stated here, "Our latest offering lays the groundwork for crypto to become the backbone of the global financial system." This is the exact same goals and even the exact same words and language that Ripple have been using to describe crypto and XRP for years now. Also remember, Robinhood very recently completed the acquisition of Bitwise, a company that is in partnership and been working with Ripple long before Robinhood. So maybe that will also help XRP surpass all expectations in this cycle. The recent launching of XRP-related Ethereum virtual machine sidechain, EVM sidechain, could also offer many benefits to Robinhood's layer 2 in the future. It's also very good for Robinhood to be offering crypto staking in the United States, as the SEC also very recently determined that staking in the US did not constitute or violate securities laws. So it's a great thing for them to be doing that. And right now their main focus seems to be on staking of Ethereum and Solana, but I am sure once the momentum piles up, the mainstream catches on and liquidity starts flowing in, many more assets will be available and added to this pool, including the number 4 asset XRP. So considering the shocking move from Robinhood and considering the increasing institutional recognition, this is why Jake Claver believes, and adamantly believes by the way, that XRP can still reach as high as $2,500 and possibly this year 2025. Listen closely here.
What do you mean this year? This year it'll be worth 2,500?
It could be by the end of the year.
Like guaranteed in your mind, like if it ain't done by 2 years, it doesn't matter.
So the reverse carry trade, like these things that I've mentioned, these are catalysts that have to transpire. Like those things.
But are they coming?
They are on the doorstep.
Are they inevitable?
They're inevitable.
So when that happens, XRP, I start to see it rise. My account's going, duh, 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 duh. Should I liquidate? Will it come back down once it's all stabilized, or will it remain that high and higher?
It'll remain that high and higher. And the reason for that is there'll be enough liquidity in it, like we talked about before, for these counterparties that settle transactions to do that all day long, but use XRP. So Swift settles $5 trillion a day. If that volume moves onto the network when XRP is $100, it'll stay there. If they start settling the back end of the stock market, which is $5 to $6 trillion a day, now we have more demand, and it's going to move to another price and stay there because it's got sustained demand and volume from the settlement of those networks and those markets.
Now that's quite insane for him to say that, but it makes sense considering what we have just covered about Robinhood and how they are expanding into tokenization as well. It is interesting that Jake highlights what would happen to XRP's value and price if and when they become the asset that supports the back end of the stock market. We are seeing more crypto institutions as well, if you've been paying attention, who are offering stock services now. The likes of Bybit Exchange, for example, Solana also started to get more involved. XRP definitely has plans for that, and their connection to Robinhood may be the bridge to let them do that as well. And then of course he mentions about XRP being the settlement, payments across borders, cross-border payments to replace SWIFT, which of course we've been knowing that for a while. Brad Garlinghouse mentioned not too long ago that he thinks XRP could attain to 14% of Swift's total market cap or total transactional volume, which is in the quadrillions. 40% is into the 100 trillions by 2028, I believe it was, so not long ago now. So it would be insane if that happens. XRP are already compliant as well. So another thing to mention, it's convenient that the ISO 20022 migration has to be done by all financial institutions and banks by November this year, according to Swift himself. That would be big for XRP because they're already compliant with the new messaging standard. So, XRP will be able to better communicate and connect with these banks come November time, which is only 4 or 5 months off from now. So this connection to Swift would allow XRP to undergo a radical price change. And Ripple CEO states right here, or stated from a year ago now, 2024, the institutional recognition of XRP has already begun. So with that in mind, from over a year ago, we may be in the middle and witnessing this gradual and then sudden explosion in adoption and value of XRP. Let's go to the interview here.
Of having that spot ETF tied to XRP anytime soon, and what do you think it'll mean for the price of XRP?
Look, I think we clearly are seeing ETFs have been popular. The United States SEC was dragged kicking and screaming to approve the Bitcoin ETF in January. I think you've seen about $17 billion flow into that ETF. I think it's the fastest growing ETF in history. It's very clearly demonstrating there's demand from institutions, there's demand from retail to access this asset class. So the XRP interest has grown. You've seen 2 or 3 ETF filings happen around XRP. And to me, it's just inevitable. You're going to see not just Bitcoin and ETH, you're going to see an XRP ETF. You're starting to see there's a filing around a basket ETF that has, I think, 5 or 6 cryptos in it, which I think also makes a lot of sense. But it also is just part of the trend of more and more institutionalized participation in the crypto industry. So I think we're going to continue to see that. And I do think it creates upward pressure on the prices for many different cryptos, including XRP.
The flows into the Bitcoin ETFs have been pretty remarkable. Not so remarkable have been flows into the ETH ETFs. What indication do you have, Brad, that there actually is demand for an XRP ETF?
Well, I would disagree that there's not, that the ETH ETF, I think, has done exceptionally well. It hasn't done as well as Bitcoin, but if you look at the kind of market dominance of Bitcoin compared to ETH, the ratio is about the same in terms of the ETF participation. Obviously, the ETH ETF is newer. So I actually think the ETH ETF has done very well.
With the SEC case nearly behind us, hopefully a month or 2 off now, leading ETF analysts at Bloomberg, the likes of James Seyfarth, has now upped the ante and the potential, the likelihood, the odds of XRP seeing spot ETFs this year up to 95% now. It was at 80 or even below that originally, then up to 90, now it's 95%, almost guaranteed we'll see XRP ETFs this year. And I shouldn't need to remind you what this will do for XRP's price. Just think about what happened to Bitcoin. When it happened to Bitcoin back in the beginning of 2024, we saw Bitcoin rally from roughly 40k or so in value. If I go all the way back and go on the daily, you can see all the way back from 40k right down here, 2024, the ETF finally went live around here, about 40k, all the way up to 100 or to 74k. Of course, right now Bitcoin is at 106k, so the ETF filing for Bitcoin has been very successful therefore. But in that short span of 2-3 months, we saw Bitcoin increased by almost 2x in value. And think about how big Bitcoin is as an asset class, trillions of dollars. So in that regard, think about what that would do for XRP if you saw similar capital inflows, not the multiplier of almost 2x, the capital inflows. So again, reflecting on what Jake stated back here, the role XRP is playing in the financial system, their connection to Robinhood, they may see similar, if not larger, institutional inflows with XRP ETF filings, and much more, because XRP has a much better use case and more adoption, more intrinsic value than Bitcoin does, aside from just being a store of value. Better still, in regard to the ETFs, SEC has now signaled the green light to XRP ETFs of sorts. They've now just acknowledged that Grayscale's amendment to convert their digital large cap fund into a public ETF, they've accepted it, which is great. This fund also includes XRP. So it's not a matter of if, matter of when, and the when doesn't seem to be far off now. XRP will see ETFs to cycle, and we'll see a lot more adoption and likely a lot higher price very soon. So $2,500 XRP. Do you think it's possible? Let me know down below in the comments. And if you don't want to miss out on what's to come out, then much more here in the VIP group, wop.com/coinfactory. From alpha institutional research documents, learn what smart money are saying to their clients, allowing us to get ahead of the retail market, educational courses, trade alerts, and so much more. Check it all out. 7-day free trial as well. Link down below in the description. And as always, don't look short term, think long term, do your own research, and I'll see you in the next one.